It's thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so we just completed a live stream talking about getting mortgages for first-time home buyers, and Lisa was curious about a couple of real estate questions. So, as she mentioned, she's a mortgage professional, and that's why I talked to her about mortgages. And she doesn't have all the latest on the real estate end of it, so she had a couple of questions, and the first one she had was.
So the NAR lawsuit goes, wow, I don't even know how to say it. Like whatever starts August 17th, where I believe there's no commission permitted from the seller to pay a buyer's realtor, permitted in the MLS. Um, how is that going to impact you, Ed? Because typically in Tennessee and most states, when a listing agent signs the contract, there's a pay structure for both the listing agent and the buying agent. And maybe here's an example. I'm going to charge you 5% as the listing agent, but then me as a listing agent, I will pay the buying agent half of that.
Mhm.
But I'm not a realtor.
Right.
So there's so much negativity out there. How do you see that? And is it
Okay.
going to change how you do business?
It will change how I do business a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be a disruption in the marketplace. You were very much on track with the way it's structured. The big thing you said is that the listing agent will not be permitted to show cooperating compensation for the buyer's agent on the MLS. That does not prohibit the listing agent from offering cooperating compensation. They
Okay.
just can't show it on the MLS. Now, I
Okay.
have a couple of personal websites, so I can show cooperating compensation for my listings on my personal websites. I can't put it on the MLS anymore.
Isn't
And
that interesting? Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and the whole deal was they were claiming, and I don't know who originally brought the lawsuit, and it was some uh, uh, class action lawsuit. So there was obviously more than one person involved. But they were claiming that it was, and I don't know, I haven't read the lawsuit. I don't care to get into reading it. I just know what the
I wouldn't
final
want to
result's going to
either.
be.
Yeah.
But basically, they were claiming that buyers were being deceived because they didn't know how much they were paying. And it was very common to say to a buyer that you don't have to worry about the compensation because the seller pays the buying agent. So it doesn't cost you anything, is what a lot of buyer's agents would say. Now, of course, we all know that's not true because the buyer pays everything. They just may not know they're paying everything. So maybe from that standpoint, there was some merit to the lawsuit. However, it's not going to have any real practical effect, except it may result in some buyers actually having to pay directly their buyer's agent that represents them. Now, previously, there has always been a form called a buyer's representation agreement, which, if I'm acting as a buyer's agent, I've always had the option of filling out that form. And sometimes I would, when I first started showing a piece of property, and I always had to fill it out before closing. But there is a spot on that form that says that the buyer agrees to pay me a certain percentage of what the purchase price is. And it also says that if the seller's agent pays me, like for example, say I wanted 3% to represent a buyer, which I typically do. Okay. Although that's just me. And that's part of the other thing. They were saying it was price fixing and all that crap, which is bullshit because there was no price fixing going on. And pardon my French, you folks out there in streaming land, but that's the way I feel about it. So anyway, they were claiming it was price fixing. So I charged 3%. I don't tell anybody else what to charge. I'm recently bringing on another baby agent to work with me. I'm not going to tell him what to charge. He charges whatever he wants to charge. I'm going to work with him. I'm going to guide him through, and I'll feed him some referrals, and I will charge him for the referrals I give him. But, you know, whatever he charges is whatever he charges. And every other agent charges what they want to charge. So you've got to decide your rate structure yourself, and price fixing is illegal. And so I can't recommend a price to anybody else. But on the buyer's representation agreement, it had the form to fill in. And in my case, I put 3%. If I did that, and I didn't very frequently at all, but I will be doing it now. And the reason is coming up. But if the seller's agent was offering, say, 2 or 2.5%, then my buyer would only have to make up the difference to get me up to 3%. So they'd either pay like 1 or 0.5% to get me to the 3%. And of course, if the buyer's or if the seller's agent was paying 3% or more, then my buyer didn't have to pay me anything. It all came out of the proceeds of the sale. But again, it's this fallacy you hear. Let me give you a couple of hillbilly quotes. I don't know that these are all hillbilly quotes, but I got plenty of hillbilly quotes. But there ain't no free lunch. That may well be a hillbilly quote. Money don't grow on trees. That may not be a hillbilly quote, because that's just too dadgum proper English to be a hillbilly quote. But both of those are quite true. Money don't grow on trees, and there ain't no free lunch. So you hear the politicians saying, well, we need to tax the rich. And especially, I like it, we need to tax the corporations. Well, I've occasionally asked people, do corporations pay tax? And most of them will say, well, sure they do. Well, no, corporations do not pay tax. General Motors doesn't pay a penny in tax. When you buy a Chevrolet or a Cadillac or whatever, you're paying General Motors corporate income tax. So there ain't no free lunch. Same with property tax. I hate property tax. You may have got yourself into a long conversation here, and if I drag on too long, you can tell me to shut up. But property tax, I hate that, because number one, you don't own your property. The government owns your property. If you stop paying the government rent on your property, guess what? It ain't going to be your property no more. And that's definitely a hillbilly saying right there. So I would like to see property tax done away with. But getting back to your question about the NAR settlement, and by the way, the National Association of Realtors for those folks outside the industry.
Okay.
But the lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors, and by the way, you do not have to be a realtor to be a real estate agent. It helps greatly. You don't have access to the MLS. I am a realtor, but I don't have to be. I pay dues to the NAR, and I pay dues to my local association of realtors, the East Tennessee Association of Realtors. But the NAR lawsuit, like I say, was saying that we were price fixing and hiding how much was being paid from the consumer and that sort of thing. So that's why it is now going to be disallowed to show the compensation for a buyer's agent on the MLS itself. But the buyer's agent can still offer cooperating compensation. Now, starting August the 12th, I think it may be the 17th. It's right there in the middle of August.
17th, maybe. I don't know.
Whatever. But whatever day it starts, I will be required to either use the buyer's representation agreement or some other equivalent form. And of course, I'll use the buyer's rep agreement, because it's a state of Tennessee approved form, and why wouldn't I? But at that point, I will be making all buyers that want me to represent them sign that, because it will be required. So I will be putting 3% down as what I expect in compensation. And again, if the seller is offering some compensation, then that will go toward my 3%. Now, the big difference is anything less than 3%, my buyer is going to have to pay me. And that is going to affect how much I would encourage my buyer to offer on the house. Since they are no longer paying their cooperating compensation, I would advise my buyer that it would be in their best interest to offer less, because previously that would have been covered by the compensation offered from the seller's agent. So that's one of the practical effects. I don't think, now there are a number of firms out there that will offer zero compensation from that point forward. And that's why I'm going to have the buyer's rep specify my compensation, because I can't work for free. And in spite of what some people think, realtors do a lot of work, especially representing a buyer. If you go into a purchase, you either need to implicitly trust the listing agent or have your own agent on your side. And having an agent means that they are looking out for your fiduciary interest. Exactly.
Yes.
Now, I fairly frequently sell one of my listings, and the buyer does not have representation. And that can be handled one of two ways. Now, in the state of Tennessee, it is legal to have what is known as dual agency. So
Okay.
I could represent the buyer and the seller. I don't do that. I would not do that. But furthermore, Keller Williams will not allow me to do that. And I think
Okay.
that's a
That's good. Okay. I
wise
didn't know
policy
that.
on their policy.
Okay.
What I can do if the buyer is unrepresented is either the buyer is just plain unrepresented. And there's another form we've got called the confirmation of agency form. There's a ton of forms involved in real estate. So on the confirmation of agency form for the buyer, I will either check that it is unrepresented, or if they are feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that, I can go to my seller and say the buyer doesn't have an agent. They're feeling a little uncomfortable with me representing you, and they don't have a representation. So are you okay if we fall back to a transaction coordinator? So at that point, I don't represent either one. But in any case, whether I'm representing the seller because it's my listing and the buyer is unrepresented, or whether I fall back to a transaction coordinator, my ethical duties to both parties is to be honest, to disclose any adverse facts I know about, and treat everybody ethically and fairly. So I explain that to people, and usually the buyer is perfectly happy with that. But I tell them also, if they want their own agent, I can find them an agent either within Keller Williams, or if they want to go outside Keller Williams, there's lots of agents out there. So if you feel like your interests are best served with your own agent, then absolutely do that. But as I say, it's fairly common for me to have unrepresented buyers, and I get I just sold a piece of property up in Del Rio recently, and that buyer was unrepresented, and he's given me a glowing review on Zillow. So
Awesome.
and I in fact still stay in touch with them, and I'm helping them out. They're planning on building a house on the property that they bought, and they haven't moved down here yet. So they'll be coming down in a couple of months and starting to build their house. I see I'm not the only one with a dog. So what kind you got there?
She is a Bernese Mountain Dog. Come here, Belle.
Oh, you got a big one.
She's a big one. She's only about 90 pounds.
Do you think she could whoop Sebastian here?
Oh,
boy,
she just loves Sebastian.
He needs a haircut, don't you, Sebastian?
Oh my
you
gosh.
Do you
He
need a
is
bath?
just too cute though. So
I'm surprised he didn't start wiggling when I asked him if he wanted a bath. But that's the basics of that.
So
Now, one other thing I want to drop in right quick on the settlement of the lawsuit. As I said, I will start requiring everybody. In fact, the lawsuit settlement requires me to have the buyer sign a buyer's rep before I even show them a house. But if I put my 3% on there and the seller were offering 4%, 3% is all I can collect. Now,
Oh,
I
okay.
hear I hear that they may be working on an amendment that will allow us to modify that. But as of right now, it's my understanding that whatever I put on the buyer's rep is what will be there. Now, I don't suppose there's anything that would stop me from putting 4% on the buyer's rep and agreeing to go lower later, but that's kind of hokey, so I would not do that. But if the seller is offering 4%, it would be nice to go ahead and collect the 4%.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. So if you're dealing with my question is, what are some options? Because this is kind of like new territory. If first time home buyer has limited cash, we know the listing, this agent is not going to provide any compensation. Seller does not agree to any compensation for the buyer.
mhm.
What are some additional potential scenarios for a buyer who, if it's
Okay.
a $200,000 home, they don't maybe, and if it's 2%, maybe they don't have
Mhm.
an extra $6,000 to pay you. So,
Mhm.
what are some options that could be available to that buyer? Can you
Well, in that
ask
case, my
in the contract? Can you put that
um,
in the
I would
offer
have to
of
look
a
into
house?
that. I'll have to ask my broker if that would be allowable. But the easier and cleaner way, in my opinion, and let me see if I can find a chart to pop up here right quick. But the easier way, in my humble opinion, be it ever so humble, it is. Trust me on that. Uh,
Good.
but the easiest way, if it's say a $200,000 house, I would recommend to the buyer, if the seller is offering zero compensation, then I would I would recommend to the buyer, if they had planned on offering 200,000, I would now be offering 194,000.
Okay.
So you know, now I don't know how that would affect the mortgage. However, would they be able to get that rolled into the mortgage, or
Well, I'm not 100% certain how that's all going to work according to all the different mortgage structures. Um,
mm-hmm,
but in your opinion, too, because I don't really know that answer, but
mm-hmm.
does is there potential harm to a seller when they don't offer any compensation? Are realtors
uh,
not going to just show that property?
well, that was the
Um,
whole deal on not showing the MLS. That was another thing they were saying, that it was causing realtors to steer their buyers toward properties that had higher compensation. And it will now be a little more difficult to determine what compensation the seller is offering, if any. You'll either have to look on their personal website, or you will have to just call and ask them, "Hey, you offering any compensation on this or not?" And so
that
it's not going to result in steering the buyers away from a particular property, in my opinion. It's just going to complicate the whole
Okay, and
workflow.
that's kind of what I
So
was thinking, um,
let's see here. Now,
does a
one
buying
thing
agent
though, go
always
ahead.
make that phone call? And if it's a really hot property, if it's well priced, if it's under $300,000 in Knoxville, that thing will go lickety split if it's in great condition. But I cannot
Hmm.
even imagine the phone calls that may happen to a listing agent just to see if there's any compensation.
Hmm.
If a realtor would know, hey, that my buyers have signed, and they, but they really don't have the 3%. Like, what
Right.
happens then? Or,
Hmm.
does that force them into a more expensive, different mortgage type? There's just so
Yeah.
much we don't really know yet of how it's
And again, this is why we each have our own areas of
of expertise. So,
expertise.
yeah, I don't play in a realtor sandbox, not at all.
Well,
I
my
just
question to
not a
you
realtor.
is there any way to add additional fees like that onto a mortgage?
And right now I do not have 100% knowledge of that. Depends on mortgage type.
Okay.
The VA has very specific guidelines, and we do hear rumblings that that's going to change, where the veteran can pay for things that last month they were not eligible to pay for, because of the NAR lawsuit. But until I see it black and white in writing, I don't like to project one way or another which way it's going to go. And because it is so new and it impacts so many people, and I think the interpretation is, so there's still some information we need to receive yet.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of slides. I'm almost ready to pop them up on the screen. I really need to pre-prepare, but since we got this subject brought up, I thought I'd just, and that's why I'm looking. I've got, much like yourself, you said you had 4 displays on your computer. Same here. So I'm looking over there doing what I need to do.
Yeah.
But let's see here. Okay, so I'm back on this screen now, as you can probably tell from where I'm looking. Let's see. I mumble a lot, you might have noticed. Let's see. Okay. Dadgummit. So I need to massage that one just a little bit before it's ready to display.
But and you do see that there is some potential workarounds. My concern is, really that first-time home buyer, and just having enough cash to close on their new property, and to make sure. I don't expect anybody to work for free, so just to make sure there's enough cash available, to make sure the buying agent is paid. And it's going to be interesting to see how this really plays out next month.
And
what kind
of again, the only thing I'm unsure of is if they don't have the cash to pay the buyer or the buyer's agent, is there any way to roll that into the mortgage? And so that would be an interesting topic to research. Let's see. So I'm just now getting these slides imported here.
Okay.
So the reason I was coming up with these 2 slides was the fact that right now it is still very much a seller's market. And that is going to be shown primarily on this slide. And, so the average number of offers received per sale is shown here through January of 21 through May of this year. And you see there, hang on, let me, Barry, I'm on a conference call. I'll call you back in about 15 minutes. All right, bye. Another real estate agent. So anyway, and I thought I had my dadgum phone on Do Not Disturb. I don't know where I screwed that up. But anyway, as you can see, even back in January of 21, it was like 3.6 offers per home. Now, this is average number of offers per home that sells. And the latest figure is about 2.8. So, when you got 2.8 people trying to buy every house, that's still very much a seller's market. But you can see it has dipped down here, and then it went back up a little bit, but it's on the downward slope again. So it'll be interesting to see what the next update on this particular slide is. But as that gets down to 1, or even, well, it can't go below 1, but as that gets down to like 1.5, then we're going to be looking at a buyer's market at that point. So that is for those agents that are not offering any compensation, that's going to force the buyer to offer less for that house. So, they've got to decide, do they want to offer compensation? Do they want to take a lower offer? And that's basically, in my opinion, the way it's going to work out. Now, from the listing side, on my listings, I personally plan to do about the same as I have always. And that is, I offer 2.5% usually, depends on how much I charge the client. But I typically offer a 2.5% cooperating compensation to a buyer's agent. And I plan to continue doing that. And the reason being that, you know, buyers aren't going to get people to represent them for nothing. And it's the way business has always been done. So it works just fine. I don't see any reason to try to change it at this point. But
Okay.
some lawyers decided they wanted to make some money, and I would not be surprised if they didn't go out and recruit the people for their little class action lawsuit. So I don't have a real big opinion on lawyers either, as you might have noticed, but they're a necessary evil, I suppose. Certainly in the closing process, we need real estate attorneys as part of the title company. And, the ambulance chasers, I guess, are the ones I have a real heartburn with. Like, you know, allow me to complain about lawyers specifically. I'm a retired pilot, as you probably know, and I guess you knew that, didn't you?
Yeah, I
But
knew that.
in any case, one of my passions earlier in life, I've got plenty of flying hours under my belt now, so I'm not really so worried about it. Although I do enjoy playing with my drones, but a Cessna 172 is a four-seat single-engine aircraft with a regular gas-burning reciprocating engine. And in 1960, that aircraft would have sold for, I'm thinking, probably something around $40,000. Let me just see what Google says about that. Cost cost of Cessna 172 in 1960. Okay. Oh, it's even less than I thought. $8,956 to buy a
Wow.
Cessna 172 Skyhawk in 1960. You know how
Wow.
much they are now?
400.
$500,000 for a single engine airplane. It's ridiculous. And why is that? It's all because of attorneys, lawyers, ambulance chasers. You know, somebody crashes and they're dead, and the family is devastated, obviously. But poor old Uncle Joe, he was a fine pilot, so there is no way he screwed up. It was that damn airplane's fault, and that's why we're paying $500,000 for a Cessna 172 now. So same thing with the National Association of Realtors settlement. I just I'll restrain my language. It's just lawyers. So what can I say?
Yeah, and I've got a dog barking in the background, so that's why I keep going on mute. He is not
Yeah, I
happy.
noticed that. That's okay. Well,
Sorry.
he'll get over it. So that's basically kind of a summary of the settlement of the NAR lawsuit. So hope that
So
shed a
with
little light.
communication between the buyer's agent, some new paperwork, should just be life as usual in Tennessee.
I don't anticipate a huge change.
Okay.
The only change that probably will occur is you will see some agents offering less or even zero compensation. And typically it's in our previous stream, I was talking about my preference for using a local expert, no matter what you're looking at, whether it's a realtor or a mortgage professional or whatever. Typically it's these, we'll sell your home, and there is no agent. It's this we'll, and I'm probably calling somebody's actual name. I guess there may be a company called We'll Sell Your Home, but it's that kind of a deal. They just they're not really realtors. They're kind of like a for sale by owner that gets listed on the MLS. Is kind of what it boils down to. And those are typically offering zero compensation. And we could talk about a whole other thing on FISBOs, as we call them, or for sale by owner. Uh, and I'm not going to get into it right now, but I will just typically say most people that start off for sale by owner wind up getting themselves a listing agent before it's all over. And those that do get a listing agent sell their house for more than those people who do actually manage to sell for sale by owner. So, if it's like me. If I had a problem with my car forever and always, I am not a mechanic. So I got a problem with the car, I'm taking it in to a proper service facility. So I sure ain't going to try to fix it myself. And I ain't even going to Billy Bob under the shade tree. I'm going to go get my car fixed right. So if you need professional services, get a professional to do the service.
I totally agree. Totally agree. But I've done a lot of business out of the state of New York. I am not a full blown New Yorker. I have that personality, but we didn't do anything without an attorney. The attorneys
Mhm.
approved the contracts. There was 3-day attorney approval, both sides. And when I closed on my home in Tennessee, I wanted attorney representation.
Oh, absolutely.
You
And
know,
I
um,
did, I call them a necessary evil. That was probably a little strong. They're necessary in many cases. The ones that I think are unnecessary and definitely evil are the ambulance chasers that's running up the cost of everything:
yeah.
medicine, airplanes, cars, real estate. And this is not going to save anybody any money. Like I got back to before, there ain't no free lunch. So if it does anything, it's going to cause prices to go up more. So that's just my personal opinion.
All right. Well, hopefully, the day's going to come and go, and hopefully, it's just business as usual with no major.
It'll be a change in the procedures, but I don't think it's going to have any real big, people that worry about things like this, there's no need to worry. Just get in and do the business. You know, there are a large number of people getting out of the real estate business right now and expecting even more. But, back in the crash of '08, which we all remember,
Mhm.
um, I know a couple of realtors that actually got into the business during that time period, and they've done great. So you can do good in any market. You just got to get out and work. So,
Yeah, absolutely right. You got to be out there always. Yeah,
mhm.
promoting what we do.
Okay.
So, all
Any other
right.
real estate questions on your brain?
Nope, I think that'll take care of it. It's just going to be something new.
Yeah.
And how do we
Well,
get through
yeah,
it? You know?
sure. Well, we'll get through it just
Yeah,
fine.
it'll be
The only
okay.
question I have, and if you could find the answer for me on that, is there any way to roll a buyer's agent fee into a loan where the seller is not offering one? That would be interesting information because
Okay. And
that
I'll
could
find
be
that out.
necessary sometimes.
Yeah. And
But
I think we've got some different, there's lots of information being fed to us now, to make sure we can help protect the buyers. And, hopefully if there's zero compensation, doesn't mean that home's going to sit out there a little bit longer. Um,
mhm.
I've been in this industry for a long time, and I don't play in a realtor sandbox because I'm not a realtor, but I'm like, what, just lots of hearing of different things and scenarios, and we'll be ready to help our realtor
Mhm.
partners. If there is a commission gap, we'll have a strategy for that. Um,
Mhm.
and that's why I work for the company that I do, because the way
One thing I'm curious, like on an FHA loan, what's the minimum down payment on that?
3.5%.
Okay. So someone would, if there's no way to roll it into the mortgage, you okay? Bless you. Okay. I had a little fit of sneezing a while ago before the stream started, and I went and took a little dose of NyQuil. Works like a charm.
Yeah, I need something. It's just been so hot, and I think in
Yeah,
the air conditioning.
yeah.
Um, Sorry about that. But
No problem at all.
yeah, 3.5% is the down payment. The
So basically, if they find a house and they have a little bit more than that, they may have to go down on the amount of down payment they offer and use their other cash that they have saved for their buyer's agent. But yeah, I expect most realtors are going to continue to offer compensation. You
I do
know,
too.
now a lot of them right now are offering 2 to 2.5. And as I said, I typically offer 2.5. So that means if somebody's representing a buyer on one of my listings, they're probably going to charge their buyer 0.5%. Or in other words, on a $200,000 loan, they'd be looking, or $200,000 purchase, not a loan, because the percentage is obviously on the purchase price, not on the loan amount. But on a $200,000 home, the 0.5% would be $1,000. So yeah. You know, if you're buying a house, hopefully you've got at least that much that you
Right.
can put toward the compensation. But
Because you guys do a lot, and I think we probably maybe do a StreamYard with about what does a realtor really do? There is a
oh, I can give
boatload.
you a good discussion on that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And that just, I find it amusing when, well, what do you do as a real estate agent? Well, it's
yeah.
kind
I
of
mean,
like asking, what do you do as a pilot?
how many pages is the contract alone in Tennessee?
The contract, as I recall, is 11 pages.
I think,
But
yeah, something like that.
yeah,
And then the
but
additional addendums that can come in based on different mortgage, different mortgage requirements require additional
right.
documents to that. But that's, but everyone knows because they have pre-approval how they're going to, put that offer together. What is because the mortgage
Mm-hmm.
is part of that offer. But anyway, we can take that up another day. So,
Well, let me
and,
tell you a little quick anecdote before we sign off here.
okay.
You talk about a lot of people don't understand what a realtor does. And as I mentioned previously, I am a retired pilot. And at the airline I worked for before I went to a corporate job, the flight attendant came bouncing up one evening and brought us Coca-Colas. And she was standing there talking with us a little bit en route. And she expressed how she wanted to be a pilot. So I said, well, sure. No, at that time, before I was working for the airline, I was a flight instructor and I enjoyed flight instructing. And honestly, if there was any money in it, I'd still be in Alaska teaching people how to fly, but there was not a lot of money in it. So here I am. But in any case, I had not been out of flight instructing that long at that time when she expressed her desire to be a pilot. So I named off some books that she should purchase, read the books, and then go down to the local airport and find herself a flight school and get a flight instructor. And there wasn't any reason in the world she couldn't be a pilot. And then she says, well, I know that button right there turns it. And she's pointing at the flight control panel for the autopilot, and there is a heading selector knob on there. And of course, she had seen the pilots select the heading, and the airplane just turns, and she thinks that's the way an airplane turns. I thought, my God, girl, you have no idea what you don't know. Before you get to that button, you're going to have at least 1,500 hours of flying time, although it's changing now. When I hired on to my last job, which, as I say, was a large corporate outfit, I mean a large corporate outfit, they had like 400 aircraft. But the minimums to get hired on at the time I hired on was 2,500 flight hours, 500 multi-engine, and 250 instrument. Now I think their minimum is like 1,000 flight hours
Oh,
and maybe 100 multi. And I don't know if they even have an instrument requirement now. It's hard to find pilots now because there ain't enough of them. So yeah, but that's neither here nor there. I'm out of the flying business now. I may go, I would like, and I know you probably want to get out of here, but I'd like to get myself a little Citabria. So look up Citabria on the inner Google, and you'll see the little interesting airplane I'd like to have for my own personal little get about. It's a fun
all
little
right.
airplane. All right. Well, it's been good talking with you, and we can do a stream on what does a real estate agent do for you, and how does that interact with what the mortgage professional does for you.
Yeah.
So let's think about that for our
Okay.
next discussion.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
great. All
See
right.
you
Take care.
later. Been good talking with you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Ed. Bye.
All right.